Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. Singing sounded like exceptionally amazing this morning. And it never ceases to amaze me, I guess, when probably you people that preach all the time, you get this all the time, but you know, when you put some effort and some thought into preparation, it's amazing how much of the service just kind of blends and flows with that. Doesn't really matter what you were going to be talking about. When Aaron was sharing his devotional, I was like, I should have just given him my notes and he could have finished for me. This morning, the title I would give it is Faith or Fear. And so a lot of the things that Aaron shared flowed very, very nicely. I'll be this honest, when I found out yesterday that Aaron was doing devotions, I was like, I should shoot him a text and just give him a hint. And I'm like, no, you know what, God can take care of that too. But faith or fear? Who likes talking about fear? Things they're afraid of? Not a lot of hands. Who likes talking about your faith? Or are we afraid of that? Sometimes we are. Sometimes we're actually afraid to talk about our faith because, it's scary. We don't know how it's going to be received. We don't know how the person is going to accept what we're actually saying. What are you afraid of? I wrote some things down here. And I would guess that by the time at the end of the list, probably everybody is going to at least have something that they could identify with. Spiders, snakes, mice, rats, high places, low places, tight places, dark places, wet places, being poor, being rich, being insignificant, being despised. It's not that long of a list, but I would guess that in there someplace you say, yeah, that's me. If you saw me cringe a little when I said tight places, tight places and rats, they're right there. They're right there at the top of my list of things that I detest and fear. I want to be able to move, and I don't want to be with rats. I didn't research, but I am sure that for every one of these things that I mentioned, there would be a phobia to go with it, which means that it's a common fear, common enough that they name something and call it a phobia. That's because they're real, right? Which one of those fears would you say is not real? There's no reason to be afraid of heights. Well, maybe there is. You could fall. There's no reason to be afraid of dark places. Well, who's saying so? What happens when those, I'm going to say rational fears, those fears that make sense, what if we let them run absolutely rampant in our minds? What if we don't control them at all? Then it becomes an obsession, or another word is paranoia. You think of people that are paranoid, always fearful, never at rest. I mentioned two things that I'm afraid of: rats and tight places, and German shepherds. I can't help myself. I am just afraid of German shepherds. Who here is 5? Anybody 5 or 6? Nobody. Anyway, when I was either 5 or 6, I got bitten by a German shepherd that had snarling teeth and just looked really angry. I cannot for the life of me be at peace in the presence of a German Shepherd that I do not know. I try, and it switches over into other dogs, and I'm pretty scared of dogs. But when I picture a German Shepherd, when I picture fear with my German Shepherd, it's always that menacing one. It's always the growling one. It's always the one with his teeth, and he's going to bite. How many of you remember Eldon and Karen's German Shepherd? Most pathetic German Shepherd in the world. Literally, I mean, yeah, he would open the door for me to come and steal things from Eldon. It's like, oh, you're here? Okay, I'll open the door for you. It's okay. So I had no fear of that dog whatsoever because I knew it wasn't to be feared. But I let that thing build up in my mind. And if I say rats, I hate rats. But every time I think of rats, I think of myself being in a confined space with tons of them, and there's no door. That's where my mind goes. And I just panic. It's paranoia. But a singular rat in a big room, and I have a club, there's no reason for me to be afraid of it. But anyway. What's another word for, I don't know if this is even right, but I'm going to use the word prudence. So sometimes we use prudence and we say, well, it's okay to be a little afraid of that, but I'm just being prudent, It's a prudent fear or caution, things like that. Ironically, I was having a conversation with my dad yesterday, and he said, did I ever tell you? And any time he says that, I know I've heard the story before because he doesn't have any new ones anymore. He's 85 years old. Doesn't make new stories, but he has plenty of old ones. He said, Uncle Don and I, we used to go swimming in, I think, Mount Etna someplace in a quarry. And there was this super high tower that used to dive off into the water. Uncle Don hit his head one time because he arched back too far in his dive, and he hit the base of this tower and split his head open pretty bad. Healed up 3 months later, whatever it was. Uncle Don's like, nope, first thing I got to do, I got to go conquer that tower. I got to do it again or I'll never go off it again. So he goes up, Dad's following up. Uncle Don stands up there, he looks around, and jumps off. And Dad got the willies. He turned around and climbed back down. I didn't remember how that story ended, but it was interesting because I assumed that Uncle Don was the one that would turn around and come back down because he had every reason to be afraid. But I write that down as prudent because what Dad said after that, he said, Glenn was a baby by that time, which is my oldest brother. And suddenly Dad is looking at this and saying, I don't have anything to prove. I can be prudent and I can walk down this ladder. I don't have to maybe hurt myself. I feel that was a prudent thing to do. I have some things jotted down here. Prudence versus paranoia. I'll just say prudence would be careful where you jump from. Paranoia says, I'll never go swimming again. Prudence says, drive carefully with a seatbelt. Paranoia says, I'm never going anywhere close to a car. Prudence says, wash your hands with soap. Paranoia says, avoid human contact at all cost. Prudence says, choose carefully who you trust. Paranoia says, trust nobody. I had to dig my notes out when Aaron was saying, I said, I think I have that written down someplace. I'm just going to share a little story of that happened, 20-some years ago. Derek had learned to swim. Derek's our oldest son. And he was a pretty good swimmer in our little pool that we had. And we went camping with friends, and there was a big pool at this campground. And I wanted Derek to jump off the diving board into the deep end of the water. And Derek was, I think, 5 probably, little squirt. And he wanted to do it so bad. Like he was like, you could see it in his face, like everything about him wanted to do this. I was down in the water, I was waiting for him. I said, listen, all you gotta do, just jump. Just pretend you're in our 3-foot pool, pretend you can touch bottom, just swim to the edge. You know how to swim, it's all right. And he would back up, He's like, his face, like I can still remember, like his face was just like, oh, and he'd come out to the, ah! He could not make himself go off the end, and I just stood there and I'm like, come on, bud, you can do it, it's all right. You know, it's not even far. Like, man, it's like from diving board to the edge, that's like swimming across the pool at home. You can do it. And he finally jumped and swam over to the edge. It took him approximately 1.3 seconds before he was off the diving board the second time. Like he just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. But suddenly the confidence was there. Why was he afraid? Wasn't because he couldn't swim. He knew how to swim. He's not afraid of the water. He couldn't touch bottom. Like that was his paranoia. I think that's what he was afraid of. I can't touch bottom. What if? What actually gave him courage to jump was what I kept telling him. Listen, I'm here. If anything goes wrong, I'll just pick you up and I'll take you over to the side. It's okay. How many times do we get into spots in our lives where we're up against the ledge and we walk out like that and God's like saying, you know what, God, I've spent like 3 years calling you to this. It's been a long time coming. Go ahead and take the plunge. Take the plunge. And we can't quite trust him. Because what if? What if I can't touch bottom? What if he actually what if he gets distracted and he's looking someplace else to help somebody? All these questions. Turn to Numbers 13. If you could keep some of those thoughts in your mind while I read this chapter about fear, about how we look at things, about faith. I'm going to read the whole chapter. I'm actually going to read it in the NLT this morning. The Lord now said to Moses, send out men to explore the land of Canaan, the land I am giving to the Israelites. Send one leader from each of the 12 ancestral tribes. So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He sent out 12 men, all tribal leaders of Israel, from their camp in the wilderness of Paran. These were the tribes and the names of their leaders. From the tribe of Reuben, Shammua, son of Zakur. From Simeon, Shaphat, son of Hori. Judah, Caleb, son of Jephunneh. Issachar, Egal, son of Joseph. Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Nun. Benjamin, Palti, son of Raphu. Zebulun, Gadiel, son of Sodai. Manasseh, son of Joseph. Gadai, son of Susai. Dan, Amiel, son of Gamali. Asher, Sether, son of Michael. Naphtali, Nabai, son of Vosai. Gad, Gul, son of Maki. These are the names of the men Moses sent out to explore the land. Moses called Hoshea, son of Nun, by the name of Joshua. And I'll stop here and say, yes, I had fear. I didn't want to read those words. I wanted to just say, you get it, just read it, and then we'll go, but I decided to try anyway. Moses gave the men these instructions as he sent them out to explore the land. Go north through the Negev into the hill country. See what the land is like, and find out whether the people living there are strong or weak, few or many. See what kind of land they live in. Is it good or bad? Do their towns have walls, or are they unprotected like open camps? Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there many trees? Do your best to bring back samples of the crops you see. It happened to be the season for harvesting the first ripe grapes. So they went up and explored the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob near Lebo Hamath. Going north, they passed through the Negev and arrived at Hebron, where Ahiman, Shashia, and Talmai, all descendants of Anak, lived. The ancient town of Hebron was founded 7 years before the Egyptian city of Zon. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, They cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, so large that it took 2 of them to carry it on a pole between them. They also brought back samples of the pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol, which means cluster, because of the cluster of grapes the Israelite men cut there. After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit they had taken from the land. This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here's the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley. But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once to take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. Some basic instruction these men had, right? I will admit that I was not familiar enough with this story to know that the men chosen were all what? What were the men that were chosen? One from each tribe. A leader. A leader from each tribe. So you think of a leader, it's somebody that this group of people is going to trust their judgment and say, you know what? We believe that you can actually make good decisions. Will you be part of this posse to go check out the land? Bring us back a report. Simple instructions. Go check it out. Even told them how to go. Go up through the hill country. Check out the land. What's it like? Is it good soil? Can we grow crops in it? Check out the people. Are they strong or weak? Is there many of them, or is there just a few? What about the cities? Check out the cities. Are they walled cities? Are they strong cities? Or are these people living in tents? Is there forests there? I don't know why they were interested in the forest other than that they needed, like Junior said, 4,000 tons of wood every day. So maybe that was part of the reason they wondered if there was a forest. And bring back some fruit if you can. Almost thrown in there as a casual ending. And oh, by the way, I heard that it's the fruit is like ripe right now, so bring some back if you can. These people were in the desert for 2 years, so I don't think they had fruit. And so I think that was really enticing to them. You ever think about what these men saw when they went on this journey? Someone remember how many days it was? How long they were gone? 40. 40 days. Now, I took the names from the Bible and I tried to find them on Google Maps, and it's sort of difficult. But I found old maps. From where they started to as far north as they went was well over 200 miles. Not 250, but 215-ish miles. Turned around and came back down. So in 40 days, they traveled well over 400 miles. And you say, well, that's only 10 miles a day, big deal. Yeah. However, I think the terrain that they were in, because Moses told them to go to the mountains, go to the hills and make your way out across there. So I think these were pretty tough men. I did some research on the names of the people that they are discussing when they come back and saying these ites live here, and these ites live here, and these ites live here, and those ites live over there, and we can just bomb through that and say, cool. It's like Minerva and Canton and blah, blah. No, it's not. Some of these ites were really not nice people. I don't know if any of them were nice people, but some of them were really, really bad. My question is, did Joshua and Caleb see different things than the other 10 did? Or did they see the same stuff? They saw the same stuff. They all saw the giants. They all saw the fruit. They all saw the land flowing with milk and honey. They all saw the good of the land. They all saw the scary parts. They all saw the fortified cities. They all saw the same stuff. What was so different about the report from 2 verses 10? And I think it's as simple as removing faith. You take faith out of the equation, and it's just like they said, we can't go up against them. They're stronger than we are. If we go to that land, it is literally going to devour us. I don't know. Was this before Korah, Dathan, and Abiram? Does somebody know that? Would have Korah, Dathan, and Abiram being swallowed by the earth happened later or before this? Did they have that as a reference point? Anyway, just being devoured by the land just seems really odd terminology. I have here the Joshua and Caleb. I have a couple little lists here. Joshua and Caleb saw a prosperous land, which to them equated to a prosperous land for us. Hey, it's a good land for them, but God promised to us it's going to be a good land for us. The 10 fearful spies saw a prosperous land, but they said, oh, it's highly protected. There's no way we can take it. These guys know how valuable it is. They're not going to let us take it. Joshua and Caleb saw cities with walls, and to them that equated a challenge. It's like, great, at least it's not tents. You know, we're going to have to work for what we get here. The other 10 saw cities with walls as well, and they said, it's an impossible situation. Joshua and Caleb saw giants, and to them, they were the enemy of God. And to the other 10, the giants were a formidable foe. And they said, we can't do anything. We felt like grasshoppers, and I'm sure we looked like grasshoppers to them. That's what the word says. Joshua and Caleb saw a valuable land worth being protected at all cost. They knew there would be impossible situations. They saw the formidable foes. They saw all the things that the other 10 did. The difference was in their perspective. What does fear do? When we're trying to make decisions, when we're trying to live our life, when we're trying to walk, when we're trying to just function, what does fear do? Fear clouds our vision, becomes this fog in front of us. Suddenly nothing is clear anymore. And the things that we thought were maybe clear, all of a sudden this fear comes over and it's like, I don't even know what's what anymore. Fear distorts reality. I'll go back to the rats in the room. Like, when am I ever going to be trapped in a room full of rats with no exit door? That's not a real possibility. Fear distorts reality. It exaggerates danger, and it minimizes God. When you think about the 10 spies that came back, They did all of those things. Their vision was clouded because of their fear. It distorted the reality. The land's going to swallow us up. It's not reality. Land's not going to swallow you up. It exaggerated danger. They said, oh, there's giants everywhere. Literally, we were like this big compared to them, unless there was big grasshoppers back then, I don't know. And it minimized God to the point where God was not part of their equation. Fear causes reaction. When we operate in a reactionary state, it affects our decisions and our behavior. Fear also makes disobedience seem like a logical option. It's okay to disobey because I am scared out of my mind. Fear causes stress. People that are under stress lash out in anger and frustration. And they blame others for their problems. Need I say that fear sells? Who's heard that? Fear sells. Headlines sell. Those headlines are crafted, those words are crafted so carefully to ignite fear. It's ironic that this whole thing is, I thought for a while of renaming some of these men with current situations of people trying to incite fear. When the people listened to the reports, it is amazing to me how Joshua and Caleb's voice got entirely drowned out. They tried. And they cut them off and said, no, listen, let's go do it now. They were literally, if you understand the journey that they were on, it was 2 years since they left Egypt. They are on the border of the promised land and say, ready to go. Let's go do it, Joshua. Let's go. And they're like, no, we can't do it. I'm not sure who said this morning about God being slow to anger and long-suffering and things. And that comes out time and time again in the story of the children of Israel in the desert. But it also, his anger seems to be ignited pretty quickly sometimes because he was just done with these people. Chapter 14 says that the people wept loudly all night long, just so distressed because they bought the fear. They totally set God aside and they bought the fear. Fear makes you do some pretty crazy things. Talk about reactions. By the next morning they were saying, okay, done with this. You know what, God, you just brought us here to kill us anyway. Let's get rid of, I don't know, they even said they're going to get rid of Moses. They said, let's just find a leader, somebody that will take us back to Egypt. Let's just go back to Egypt already, because there at least we had food. What else? They were slaves. They were in bondage for 400 and some years. And this suddenly looked worse. You know what? Just take us back there. Just take us back there. I'm 100% sure Pharaoh will be glad to see us. I wonder if they ever thought how they're going to get across the Red Sea. Pretty sure God's not going to open the way for them to go back. These are people, like it's not like this has been 30 and 40 years. This is 2 years. And it's very easy for me to say, I know which side I would be on. I would be with the two with faith. I'm not so confident of that. We like to say there's safety in numbers. If we were taking a vote and 10 voted one way and 2 voted another way, who wins? You don't even have to do the math. It's not that close. Whose side would you be on? When you remove faith out of the equation and you latch onto the fear, so many times you're going to be on the majority side. And the majority is not always right. What does faith do? Faith brings clarity. It minimizes the danger and exaggerates God. It puts God right where he belongs. It magnifies him. I use the word exaggerate. I don't know if you can exaggerate God, but you can magnify him. You can make him who he needs to be. And faith always chooses to obey. Faith, however, rarely sells. Who can sell faith? Joshua and Caleb tried, and the people wanted to stone them. Say, we don't want to hear your faith. Faith often stands alone. I'm going to wrap up by going back to where I was maybe 15 or 20 minutes ago. It wasn't the plunge he feared. Because he wanted nothing more than to take the plunge off the end of that diving board. So where you're standing today, if God is asking you to do something that feels like a plunge, what's holding you back? I would like to read Joshua, a couple verses in Joshua 1. This is the Lord talking to Joshua after Moses passed away. He says, study this book of instruction continually, meditate on it day and night, so you will be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and exceed in all that you do. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. If you are on that precipice, not sure if you should take the plunge, insecure about the fact that maybe God is not waiting there to catch you and help you walk through your thing, be strong, be courageous, take the plunge, because he will be there.